Namaskaram. Good morning and welcome to WishwaTalks. My name is Radhika. It is a great pleasure to have you all here. For those of you who attended a WishwaTalk before, a warm welcome back. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, here's a little bit about Vishwa. WishwaTalks is a free weekly webinar where experts come to share their insights on wide range of topics. We invite speakers from various fields including art and culture, healthcare, ecology, education and more. Here, we discuss and explore diverse opinions, issues, problems, and perspectives. Each webinar is an interactive session with a deeper understanding of the topic at hand. If you miss any part of the session and if you would like to go through the previous sessions, please visit our website or WishwaTalks YouTube channel for a full library of past WishwaTalks. Today, we are honored to introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Madhav Arpi Reddy, who is founder and CEO of Tride Mobility India. Madhav Reddy is an engineer from IIT BHU and has done MBA in Global Logistics and Supply Chain Management from SP Jain. With over 12 years of extensive experience, Mr. Reddy has demonstrated exceptional skills and leadership. He initially made his mark in automobile industry, working in channel partner management roles with giants such as Maruti Suzuki and Tata Motors. He then worked for around 5 years in Blue Yonder, a leader in supply chain solutions. He has involved in supply chain digitalization projects as solution architect for some of the Fortune 500 companies across the globe. Mr. Reddy has founded Tride Mobility 3 years back along with Mr. Kranti and is currently working on scaling the company in role of CEO. Tride Mobility is at the forefront of revolutionizing electric vehicle management in India. Their AI driven platform is making waves by championing a connected, intelligent, and safe approach to promote widespread adoption of electric vehicles globally. Under Mr. Reddy's leadership, Tride Mobility has emerged as a trailblazer in electric vehicle sector. So before we get started, I would like to inform the audience that our speaker will be taking questions from you after the main talk. So please leave your questions in the chat box or use raise hand tool and we will allow you to ask your question in person. I request everyone to turn on your webcam for interactive activities. So without further ado, let us give a warm welcome to Madhav Arpi Garu and learn more about electric vehicles and current scenario in India. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Radhika. Thank you very much for the wonderful introduction. And good morning, everyone. Good morning to all the viewers who have joined this webinar on a beautiful Saturday morning. And I really thank Vishwa team for giving me this opportunity. It's actually an honor to be over here and share some of my perspectives on the EV ecosystem. Maybe I'll quickly share the slide deck. Just a moment. Yeah.
We are sharing it, sir.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, I think Radhika has already given quite a bit introduction. So maybe I'll just quickly touch upon what we do in this specific space. So we are an intelligent, connected, and safe vehicle platform for electric vehicle management, basically with safety as the central core of our offerings. So next slide. Yeah, so basically, what we do is we work closely with the key stakeholders in this space, like the vehicle manufacturers, the battery manufacturers, and the fleet operators, basically helping them understand how their products are behaving in the real world, basis which they can continuously innovate their product qualities and improve their overall user experience. I mean, our product offerings is majorly towards enhancing the safety of the different aspects of the products, like one, the driver safety, vehicle safety, and the battery safety. Next slide, please. And how do we do that? So if you see, basically we have a digital data foundation layer through an IoT layer where we deploy these IoT devices in the electric vehicle, which integrates with the CAN network of the vehicle and provide a real-time information of the different health parameters of the vehicle. So once we have this information with us, it gets relayed onto our cloud server where we have our intelligent AI ML engines which extract meaningful insights out of the data that is being collected. So as on date, we are addressing use cases such as real-time battery health monitoring, state of charge, state of health estimation of the battery, anomaly detection in the battery and alerting the relevant stakeholders, how the user is driving the electric vehicle and how it's actually impacting the overall vehicle performance, driver assistance systems with safety as the central core. Coming to the application platform, we basically provide offerings such as intelligent vehicle management system, driver assistance system, the entire end-to-end digital fleet management, and then the battery health management. Next slide, please. Yeah. So, without further delay, I'll directly get on to our today's topic. So, these would be the very high level topics that I would be touching upon, and I'll be happy to address any queries that you all may have after the presentation. So, the key topics that we'll be touching upon is first one is the fundamentals of EV and the key stakeholders in this entire ecosystem. What are the drivers that are actually driving the EV adoption in India currently? And what the current adoption trends look like and what the future holds for us. The key challenges, all the stakeholders that are facing right now, and the different use cases for ones who want to kind of get on to different careers in the EV space or want to explore different business opportunities. What are the current use cases that are there in the EV ecosystem? Are there any alternatives to EVs? And then we'll summarize and see what's the way ahead for us. Next slide, please. So fundamentals of EV. Next slide. So what exactly is an EV? So we all are aware. What exactly is an EV? So I just put some text as per U.S. Department of Energy. This is pretty self-explanatory. I'll just read through it. So battery-enabled vehicles are a type of electric vehicle which uses chemical energy stored in the rechargeable battery packs with no other secondary source of propulsion. So basically, it runs only on batteries and it doesn't have any other power source like engine or any other fuel to run the vehicle. And it typically uses a electric motor for converting the electrical energy into the mechanical energy for driving the vehicle. Next slide, please. Yeah. So, unlike we all are aware about the different components of ICE because that's where we have grown from our childhood, looking at all the vehicles out there in the market in terms of petrol, diesel vehicles. But yeah, in terms of EVs, if we look at the key components, unlike the IC engine, IC, I'll just give a little explanation about the ICE vehicles. So ICE vehicles typically mean internal combustion engine vehicles, which are our petrol and diesel vehicles that have been there traditionally from quite some time. So I'll be using a lot of this terminology ICE vehicles. So whenever I say ICE vehicle, it refers to the petrol and the diesel vehicles. So when compared to the ICE vehicles, there aren't many complicated or complex parts involved in an EV. So the major components that are there in an electric vehicle. So one is the battery pack, which consists of multiple individual cells that are put together to form a battery pack which delivers energy for driving the vehicle. And if you look at the entire cost of the vehicle, this constitutes almost 35 to 50% of the overall vehicle cost. And then we have the next one is the electric motor that converts the electrical energy into the mechanical energy which will be supplied to the wheels. And then we have the powertrain for regulating the electrical energy from the battery to all the different components. But the key thing that we need to look into this is the price which these components actually constitute in the overall bill of materials, basically in the overall costing. So battery constitutes almost 50%, 35 to 50%, electric motor almost 10%, and then powertrain close to 5%. So these three components put together itself constitute almost 50% to 70% of the overall vehicle cost. So next slide, please. So then why EV is actually a fundamental innovation? So like now just we have seen there aren't many complicated or complex systems involved like our petrol and diesel vehicles or the ICE vehicles. Very what do you say, very simple architecture the entire electrical vehicle has. Very small, very few moving parts, which implies that there is no need for setting up a very complex assembly line like typically we have earlier. And also in terms of maintenance, it's pretty low when compared to ICE vehicles. So what does this mean in terms of commercialization? So typically earlier, if we all can recollect IC engine vehicles, so if we look at two-wheeler market, we know there are pretty standard players, five, six big major players we know, like whom we are seeing from our childhood, Hero, Honda, TVS, Bajaj. But yeah, coming to EVs, that is not the case because there are the entry for barriers into setting up a manufacturing plant is less. So I mean, with minimal investment, people can actually get into setting up this manufacturing facility of an electric vehicle. So we could see a spike of more than almost 10 to 15x than what we have in the normal IC engine space. And the next important factor to consider is all these electric vehicles are connected by default. So what do we mean by connected vehicle ecosystem? So this is the area in which we are actually working upon. So if you look at the ICE vehicles or the petrol or diesel vehicles, typically whenever there is an issue in the vehicle, we get a MIL light, malfunction indicator lamp light, in the instrument cluster, or a check engine light. And then we need to kind of take the vehicle to the workshop, and then someone actually connects an OBD tool, onboard diagnostic tool, and then retrieves what is the issue in the vehicle. So it is not actually real time. So the data gets stored in the vehicle in terms of what is the issue, and then once we go to a workshop, some authorized person will come and then kind of check what is the issue in the vehicle. So by connectivity, what we mean is there is a the architecture in itself is very favorable for this connectivity aspect. So wherein we can get a real time information of how the vehicle is performing in the road. So that is what we mean by connected. So also with this specific combination, EVs, autonomous driving can be a very what do you say, a goal which we can see as a closer because of this enhanced connectivity that we see because of the electric vehicles. And then next, last but not the least, we have electric vehicles. Definitely in terms of purchasing one, it's costlier than the IC vehicles. But if we see the maintenance part of it or the operational cost part of it, so it is cheap when compared to the petrol or diesel vehicles. I'll go into the individual calculations as we proceed as well. So generically, if we see, it is almost 0 to 60% costlier to purchase an electric vehicle, and however the operational costs are 60 to 80% less. So what does this mean? So if you look at a fleet operator where they are heavily reliant on these operations, for them this is a very immediate use case which they can deploy these electric vehicles and reduce their overall operational costs. So that is the reason we also see penetration levels more in this specific B2B segment, where they deploy these electric vehicles, reduce their overall operational costs. And also if we see the total cost of ownership means over a period of 5 years, considering the life of the vehicle, from the purchase till we are kind of salvaging the vehicle, what is the cost that is incurred? So if you look at the overall lifetime cost, electric vehicles TCO is much lesser than the traditional ICE vehicles. And also with increase in penetration levels and also reduction in the price of raw materials over a period of time because of the volumes, we see this price gonna reduce furthermore drastically, basically making it affordable for everyone. So next slide, please. So just we'll just touch upon who are the key stakeholders in this entire ecosystem. So right from the start, where it starts from the cell manufacturer, who look into, what do you say, getting sourcing the raw materials like lithium, cobalt, nickel, and then put it across in a cell, and then they provide this to the battery manufacturers or the vehicle manufacturers. And then we have the battery assemblers who put up this battery pack along integrated with a battery management system module, which is like kind of a heart for this entire battery system. And then we have the OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, which typically are the major vehicle manufacturers that we see. Like we have Ather, Ola. So these are the OEMs that are available there in the market. And the next other important stakeholder is the dealer. So ideally, these OEMs typically sell their vehicles through their dealer network. So this is another important stakeholder in this entire ecosystem. And then we have the charging point operator, typically we see a lot of charging points nowadays actually coming up. So these are individual charging points, and the people who are actually setting it up are the charging point operators. And then we have charging network aggregators. So typically they aggregate all these individual charging point operators and put up an application so that users can easily access all these operators across the city. And then we have the most important other stakeholder is the financier, basically who helps in financing of the vehicle for the end customer. And then of course, last but not the least, we have customer who actually utilizes the vehicle for his day to day commute. So there are also new stakeholders that are coming in this specific space. As the market is maturing, we see a lot of scope in the recycling part where we have new players emerging. So next slide, please. This is just a slide. I'm not kind of supporting any brand over here, but yeah, just to kind of give an understanding. Basically, two wheelers, typically a scooter, bike, and then Luna sort of build that we have in the EVs, and then we have three wheelers. We have different companies already there available in the market. On the four wheelers, we have I mean, models that we already see flying on the road, Tata, MG, Hyundai, and then we have buses. We have our own Electra buses based out of Hyderabad, which are actually manufacturing, and then Tata ACV. Next slide, please. So we have looked at basically what an EV is, what are the different components of an EV, who are the key stakeholders that are actually involved in this entire ecosystem, and the types of EVs. Now let us see, why do we need EV in the first place, and what is actually driving the EV adoption in India. Next slide, please. So basically, if we see in terms of the most important factor that we see over here is the fossil fuel cost. So basically, over the past decade, we can see how the petrol or the diesel prices have actually been increasing. So this is a little past data, but if we see petrol, I believe is a little more than 100 right now, and diesel is somewhere close to 100 per liter. So if we look at the IC engine, the major cost IC engine vehicle, the petrol diesel vehicle, the major cost is basically the fuel cost, for which the prices are actually increasing on a day-to-day basis. So which directly implies that whoever all are using the IC engine vehicles, their operational cost would directly go up. So that is one of the important driver for someone to shift from ICs to EVs. And the second one is basically there's also a strong government push for ensuring that the electrification is in place. So if we all can recollect, in our last budget sessions also, there was this FAME 2 subsidy that was provided to a lot of OEMs out there in the market, so as to reduce their overall overhead costs. So if you see a lot of players in two wheelers, three wheelers, four wheelers, buses, even charging infra operators, charging infra setup, people who are actually setting up charging infra, so they were also kind of benefited with these benefits, with these FAME 2 subsidy which was provided by the government. So there was almost a subsidy of 10,000 that was provided per kilowatt hour production, per kilowatt hour of the vehicle that is being produced. So this was there for almost the entire last 2 3 years, and then in the recent budget they have kind of allocated some budget for the specific continuation of FAME 2. But yeah, the utilization is still yet to be confirmed, how it's going to be utilized. And also this is on the supply side, where government is providing a lot of production linked incentives. But on the demand side, so basically if you look at from a customer perspective, what's in it for me? So one, these production linked incentives are also from the OEMs being kind of carry forwarded to the end users by reducing the price of the vehicles. So that is one thing. And the next one is there are certain policies that are kept in place by individual state governments for helping the individual EV buyers. So, for example, in the state of Telangana, the EV policy actually kind of mandated that I believe close to 3 to 5 lakhs of two-wheelers which get first registered will have the registration fee waive off. So that is some kind of I mean, push that was kind of provided from the government of Telangana. Similarly, we have individual states having individual EV policies providing different demand side incentives for the buyers. And there's also loan interest waiver, I believe, where in case if we purchase an EV loan, so we get a tax benefit also over there. So these are some of the, perks that were actually provided from the government to ensure that the EV adoption is increasing. Next slide, please. Sorry. And the next one is basically the total cost of ownership, I believe. Yeah. So the first, graph indicates that when during purchase of vehicle, typically the price of the vehicle is on an average 24% higher than an ICE vehicle. However, if you look at the overall operational cost, it is 60% lower than the ICE vehicle. So on a whole, if we look at the entire total cost of ownership over the life period, it is 22% lower than a traditional ICE vehicle. So definitely, it's a no-brainer that people who want to kind of look at who track these specific aspects, EV would be a much better option. And last but not the least, the emissions from the ICE vehicles. Uh, uh, okay, I just got a question. What is ICE vehicle? So I kind of covered at the beginning, but still I'll just repeat it because people who would have joined little lately. So ICE is typically internal combustion engine vehicle, which represents the petrol and diesel vehicles, which we have been looking traditionally from the past. So that is ICE vehicle, and EV is basically the electric vehicle that we are discussing upon. So coming on to the drivers, so the last one is basically the greenhouse emissions impact by internal combustion engine vehicles. So just to give you an example, in 2020, financial year 2020, two-wheelers consumed 60% of India's total petrol consumption, and this resulted in a 38 megatons emission of CO2. And now, if we consider with this statistic, if we consider two different scenarios where we do not have any electric vehicle penetration, and if we see the trend the same as it was earlier, that would result in almost CO2 emissions to reach 56 megatons per year by 2030, if there aren't any electric vehicles coming in. However, if we consider another scenario where we have 60% electric two-wheeler penetration by 2030, this would mean a cumulative reduction of 117 megatons of CO2. So basically, we could see the kind of environmental impact which the ICE vehicles have. I mean, when we shift from ICE to EVs, these emissions actually get reduced or neutralized. So that is the other underlying driver for this EV adoption, and we all are aware about the consequences of CO2 emission, global warming, and all that. I don't want to get into that specific aspect. Yeah, next slide, please. So another slight comparison on the ICE vehicles versus EVs. So if you look at the number of moving parts, like we discussed, ICE, the entire internal combustion engine vehicle, the architecture is pretty complex and there are a lot of moving parts when compared to electric vehicle. Energy recuperation, typically the electric vehicles can actually get recharged. So whenever we get the vehicle into charging, so typically the battery gets recharged, and again once it is full, it will deliver the range which it is supposed to deliver. However, unlike in petrol vehicle, we need to fill petrol, so that is the only way out. And then in terms of power density, so basically the power output delivered per weight of the vehicle, so it is more for electric vehicles. And then the torque at standstill, so typically in petrol and diesel vehicles, the torque actually depends on the RPM of the engine. So it attains a peak torque at specific RPM. So ideally it depends on the speed at which we are going, and peak torque is achieved at a specific RPM, and beyond and below that the torque values actually change. However, in electric vehicles, right from the start at standstill, standard torque can actually be achieved, because of which we can see good pickup in electric vehicles. So next slide, please. So this is just a kind of a representation of the total cost of ownership between the electric vehicles and ICE vehicles. So if we look at the different components of the costing, if we see, so one is the vehicle cost itself, And then we have, like, in case if someone goes for a bank loan, there will be an interest cost that will be involved. There will be a down payment, there will be a registration fee, there will be an insurance. And then once we have the vehicle, then there's a maintenance cost typically for running the vehicle. One is the fuel cost, in case of electric vehicle, the charging cost. And then post that, in case if we have to get any normal maintenance work done, so there is another cost involved. And then finally, like, once the vehicle is kind of scrapped, so you'll get some part of that initial cost that we have invested. So if you look at both the ICE, I mean, for the internal combustion and the electric vehicle, it is almost at par at this point in stage. However, if we see the energy cost, basically for the electric, for the ICE vehicles, that is the maximum, which is basically the petrol and the diesel cost that we put in the electric vehicle. However, for electric vehicles, the energy cost is pretty low when compared to the energy cost of ICE. So what does this mean is that if we can bring down the initial purchase cost and make it affordable to people, the overall total cost of ownership of EVs can be drastically reduced when compared to ICE engines, ICE vehicles. Next slide, please. So this is just a kind of a comparison which I have taken from one of the reports. For different two-wheeler vehicles, three-wheelers, four-wheelers, buses, what is the overall total cost of ownership for an ICE vehicle as well as for a comparative EV model? So if we see, almost all segments are of the vehicles are total cost of ownership positive with the subsidy that is being provided. Yeah, like I stated, going ahead, once volumes increases, the initial cost can actually be brought down. Even without subsidy, going ahead, that could be a very good game changer for all the end consumers. Next slide, please. So now we have looked at the drivers that are driving the EV adoption in India. So let us now look at what does the current adoption trends look like in the Indian market scenario, and how the future is being kind of projected. Like, next slide, please. So in terms of overall market size, if we see as per an intelligence report, so EVs are projected to contribute 60% of the overall automobiles sold in by the year 2030. And this is going to be a $400 billion market across the globe. And also, as per Indian statistics, as per Niti Aayog, so basically we have the government is actually projecting the penetration levels of two wheelers to touch 80%, three wheelers 60%, four wheelers 50%, bus and truck around 30% in the next 5 to 6 years. And the key stakeholders that are impacted because of this specific change from the ICE to the EVs are, one, of course, the OEMs, the vehicle manufacturers, battery manufacturers, and then the fleet operators, typically, which include battery as a service providers, mobility as a service providers, and even individual companies having their own fleet to manage their entire operations. Next slide, please. So there are also some latest developments in this space. I mean, like, if you all can recollect, there were certain incidents that happened in the market almost 1.5 years back, where electric vehicles caught fire. So there were certain stringent norms also which government has brought in in relation to that, where the battery has to undergo very stringent testing standards for it to actually get deployed in the vehicle and rolled out onto the road. So we have this AAS 156 battery compliance norms in place right now, and then we have a lot of net zero emission goals by individual countries. Individual businesses also do have net zero emission, individual goals for the entire business entity itself, like global businesses, including Amazon, IKEA, FedEx, even Indian businesses like Gati, Zomato, Flipkart, who are majorly dependent on these fleet, are trying to transition to net zero emissions. So, other latest development is, like, we also see a lot of new entrants coming in this specific space, and also the existing traditional big OEMs also are working on releasing new EV models. Next slide, please. So now let us look at what is the current penetration level in the Indian EV market. So if we see, yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about EVs and all, but if we see in terms of penetration levels, where exactly are we? So if you look at the two-wheeler market, so two-wheeler market around 22, 23, we are somewhere close to around 3 to 4% penetration levels. I mean, there is still a long way to actually go in terms of two wheelers that we are supposed to go, and also in terms of passenger cars, we are less than 1%. So there is still a huge long way to actually go ahead. And also the other important thing is we can see much more penetration levels happening in the three wheeler space, and that is because it is majorly driven which is majorly a B2B market which the three wheelers actually serve. So where the important use case that actually kicks in is the reduction of the overall operating costs. So three wheeler is pretty much faster along with the bus, where they could kind of get this EVs deployed and can reduce their overall operational cost. So that's the reason why we see more penetration of electric vehicles in this specific segment. And going ahead by the year 2030, I mean, this is I mean, kind of a projection level as per one of the report released by Bloom EV Primer report. So we could see that basically three wheelers can have the potential to touch 85% penetration levels by the year 2030, and two wheelers can somewhere reach around close to 65 70% of penetration levels. So and the passenger cars, of course, we see that that could be somewhere close to around 25%, and on the commercial side it could be somewhere around 60%. So this is what the projection levels look like, considering the future adoption of EVs in the Indian market. So there are a lot of factors that need to be considered over here. I mean, these are not like, what do you say, 25 means it will reach 25, because there are quite a few factors that need to be taken care before we actually are there at that specific point, which we'll be discussing, touching upon slightly in our subsequent slides. Next slide, please. So the other important factor which I kind of touched upon earlier is the battery price in the entire vehicle. So if you look at the battery price, it almost constitutes 50% of the overall vehicle costing. So if we see the overall global battery prices, so we see a spike that has happened I mean recently, because of the, what do you say, lot of sudden requirement happening, and there was a production constraint at the mining. So there was a sudden spike, but over a period of time, we can see that the overall battery, the overall raw material costing for the batteries, it can actually drastically go down to almost 50% of what it is, levels at which it is right now. So what does this mean? This definitely means that going ahead, once the volumes increases, the overall cost, initial cost of the vehicle, there is a very much a chance that this can act drastically go down by almost uh, 40 to 50% than what it is right now, available in the market. So this is the major outlook from this specific uh, slide that we have put in, that globally, the because of increase in volumes, because of increase in the numbers, EV adoption, so the and there's this economies of scale that would actually come in, which would drive down the price of this entire raw material, which then will actually impact the end pricing of the vehicle, making it affordable for the end users. Next slide, please. So yeah, so now till now we have looked at what the, I mean, what is an EV basically, what are the factors that are driving the EV adoption in India, what are the current adoption trends that we see in the Indian market, and how the future looks like. But what are the key challenges that we are facing in terms of this driving this EV adoption? So let us have a look on these specific aspects as well. Next slide, please. So if you look at the key challenges, maybe 1.5, 2 years back, I mean, the market was flooded with a lot of models. I mean, the basic business model that worked upon at the time was people used to get the parts from the different countries. They used to used to kind of assemble it and kind of sell it in the market, which with very much less priority on the safety of the vehicle. So considering the the EV architecture, a good amount of R&D needs to actually go into the vehicle for developing it for the Indian conditions. So this wasn't there at least 3-4 years back, but right now we do have a company spending a lot of amount on the R&D and improving the product quality, overall user experience of the vehicle. So this is one of the challenge where we see an innovation happening on a day-to-day basis. This next one is basically the component manufacturers. So if we see, there was a huge dependency a couple of years back. There was a huge dependency on China and other global markets for us to kind of get these components and then kind of assemble in the vehicle. So this is one of the key important factors, because due to any global disturbances, the entire supply chain gets disrupted. So this is one of the other major impact that we could see, which would result, one, in the production and other service of the existing vehicles that are flying on the road. So this is another important challenge that we have in terms of developing all the components required for the vehicle assembly in-house, basically localization of the components. And then the next one, most important thing, is basically the charging infrastructure. So when, as a customer, if I want to purchase a vehicle, I definitely need to know how much range would I get per charge. And if I don't have a certainty on that, then definitely that's going to be a challenge. And also, if I have that specific statistic in place, I would be able to plan my commute. Basically, like, if my vehicle is going to give me a range of just maybe 50 kilometers per charge, and if I have to travel maybe 80 kilometers per day, then I'll have to get the vehicle charged somewhere in between. But the charging infrastructure wasn't that much extended 1-2 years back across India. But right now, yes, there are quite a few startups, companies that are working on addressing this specific challenge. So basically, without charging infrastructure, there'll be range anxiety within the customers. Once there is range anxiety, I will definitely not prefer an EV. I will go for an ICE vehicle, which again will, in turn, it's a chicken and egg problem, because no customers are there. Why should I invest in charging infrastructure? So this is what was actually happening in the market. But right now, government is also kind of pushing setting up the charging infra points, so that it is easily accessible for most of the public during their commute. And then the other important challenge was that lack of financing options. So the main hindrance for this specific thing is that, like, for example, I take a loan, and tomorrow if I don't pay, normally what happens in the IC space is that the financier actually comes, he kind of takes the vehicle, and then he resells it, and then kind of compensates for whatever the the balance that I had to actually pay. But in the EVs, ideally, the secondary market wasn't established that much. So people were kind of purchasing only the first hand vehicles. There wasn't much bigger market that was established. So even the financials weren't aware how to kind of underwrite in the risk which they are actually kind of carrying on financing these electric vehicles. But now, as we see going ahead with the incoming of good quality vehicles with much more range, much more reliability, so we see that this specific issue is also getting addressed as the time is progressing. Yeah, next slide, please. So, one thing which I also wanted to kind of convey is that, yeah, this question I also always had in my mind. Are EVs the only available option for us? Aren't there any alternatives for EVs available in the market? Next slide, please. So, definitely, if we see, yeah, like, there are certain alternatives, basically, for safe, sustainable mobility options. We could see there are other options, such as hydrogen fuel cells. There's a lot of investment that's happening on this specific space as well, wherein companies like Toyota are heavily invested into this, where they have developed a prototype bus prototype, working, running on hydrogen fuel cell. And there are also other alternative options where we have biofuels, hybrid vehicles, alternative propulsion engines using CNG, LNG, even solar powered vehicles. But if we see in terms of commercial viability, so EVs are the only ones which we could see at this point in time where they are kind of commercially available or commercially viable in terms of the overall volumes that we see. So definitely there are other options available in the market, but there's a lot of research going on into this specific space as well. But yeah, we'll have to see how it kind of unfolds going ahead. Even in EVs, there are a lot of even the chemistries, alternate chemistries are also kind of being tested. Like someone pointed out, sodium ion chemistry. So that's also something which I mean, few of the companies are actually working upon. So even within electric vehicles, there are different chemistries which are being kind of adopted by the OEMs, trying to see which one works better, which one is more commercially viable once we have huge volumes. So yes, I mean the future only unfolds as we proceed, because there's a lot of research and development that's happening in the specific space. So next slide, please. So I think the other most important thing is for people who are actually looking for maybe a career or for maybe setting up a business in the EV ecosystem. What are the major use cases that are available out there? Next slide, please. I'll just run through them. So one is on the vehicle manufacturing and the supply chain. So last 3 to 4 years, there has been a lot of, push from the government on this side by providing a lot of production linked incentives and all, which actually has driven this specific space quite a bit. So one is the EV in itself, design and production, setting up of the entire production plant, and then the charging infra, setting up charging infra across different points in the city, making it accessible to all the users, commuters, and also a lot of emphasis was there on the different alternate technologies which I just touched upon, and ensuring it is commercially viable in terms of production. And also the other important point which was stressed upon was the localization kind of component and material sourcing, reducing the dependency from the other countries. So these on the vehicle manufacturing and supply chain side, so these are some of the areas which one can actually look into. And then the next one is the software and the technology side, where we are also currently working upon, which typically includes fleet management platforms, where the entire end-to-end digital management of the EV fleet can be done utilizing software solutions. And then there's a lot of this vehicle to grid technology that's actually happening. It's already prevalent in the US, where it's a business in itself, where you charge your vehicle when the demand is in off-peak time, and you actually kind of provide the energy back to the grid when the demand is huge, so that you make a cut in between. So that's a huge business already prevalent in the western market, US market, and that's also something that going in the future we could see coming up. And then the connected car and analytic solutions, basically making the car well connected in terms of getting real time updates, anomalies, so that the product can be improved and the overall user experience can also be improved. And the next one is basically the charging energy management and autonomous solutions going ahead. And the other field that we are looking at, the services and shared mobility, this is more towards the B2B side of the things, where EV rentals, subscription services, carpooling, ride sharing platforms, basically providing vehicles for these specific businesses, so that the overall operational costs are within limits. Micro mobility sharing, EV maintenance and repair services. So earlier we used to have certain players, where even for our last mile logistics, we used to kind of book these like bounce and all, which are now shifting all their fleet to electric vehicles. So because so that they can reduce their operational costs drastically. So this is another area where there is much more business opportunity available. And the last, basically, the financing solution. So like I stated earlier, there was a quite a bit barrier in terms of financing the electric vehicles. But now we see that trend actually changing, where a lot of new players are coming in and also assisting in financing the electric vehicles, owing to the coming of good quality vehicles onto the road. So that is one important stream that's actually picking up. And then there's also carbon offset market solution, that also certain companies which have come up, where based on your carbon emission or reduction that you are doing as a company or as an individual, you can get certain carbon credits which you can kind of sell to other entities or companies which are in need. So this is also another space that actually coming up. And then yes, of course, investment into EV related startups and EV data management. So these are broadly the areas, use cases in the EV ecosystem, where one can actually kind of focus in terms of looking for any opportunities or any business setup, things like that. Next slide, please. So yeah, lot has been said, but we'll just kind of summarize what we have discussed and how the way ahead looks like. Next slide, please. So if we see, in terms of the current trends, there is a lot of positive momentum that we could see, mainly because of the drive from the government. A lot of funding and investments happening in this specific space. A lot of innovative solutions that are actually coming up, maybe in terms of alternative chemistries, improving the overall efficiencies of electric vehicles, reducing the overall costs, and also setting up charging infrastructure. The penetration levels also we see kind of increasing, over a period of time. So all these kind of set kind of a positive momentum in terms of the overall EV adoption in the Indian market. However, like we stated, definitely nothing comes easy. There are challenges, like we discussed, the supply chain disruptions, basically huge dependency on other markets. So we need to look at localization of the component procurement. Range anxiety is other important major challenge. Yes, there are innovations happening, but yes, we need to be, what do you say, continuously innovating for us to reach a specific position where the user or the driver will be comfortable driving the electric vehicle without any range anxiety. Maybe even presence of the charging network, spread of charging network across the different geographies. So yeah, right now we could see a lot of charging infra available within the city. But yeah, now if you're looking at commute from city to city, so that is where even the focus is now being shifted. We see some charging stations coming up, but yeah, there is a long way to go. But work is being done on that specific site. And looking at the way ahead, so there needs to be a focus on developing an expertise in niche segments. So basically, like someone's working on the connected vehicle technology, they need to be very much what do you say, they need to dwell deeper into that specific core area and innovate the product. So that is what it means, where we need to have pockets of innovation that should happen across the entire EV value chain. So that is one thing. And then we should utilize the latest technologies, like IoT, AI/ML, for ensuring that all the connectivity is also in place, and the electric vehicles are also, in terms of efficiencies, are much more better than what it was earlier. And the other most important thing is affordability. Definitely with volumes, it's going to be affordable with due to economies of scale. But yes, all the companies need to work to ensure that it is affordable to the common public when compared to the ICE vehicle. So that is where the actual drive of the electric vehicles would actually kick in. And then collaboration is the key. So here, if as a player, if I want to do end to end, looking into manufacturing connected vehicle, shared mobility services and all that, it doesn't happen that way. So you pick your niche and then focus on that, innovate in that specific segment, and collaborate to kind of expand. So here we see even this collaboration in terms of startups, established companies, government, educational institutions, all coming together to kind of innovate and take this forward. So that is something that is already happening, and that is going to be the way ahead. And adapt and stay agile, I think this is the most important thing. With this I would like to conclude. So basically, because since we being in the EV space, we see a new use case coming up almost every other week. So I mean, we need to ensure that we are very uh, agile and flexible to incorporate the feedback that we get onto the market, ensure that the platform kind of I mean, incorporates that specific feedback, innovates, and then yes, move ahead. So that is going to be the way ahead. Next slide. Thank you very much for your patience. I'll be happy to address any queries that you all may have. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir, for this amazing session and for enlightening us about EV sector, the challenges in the EV sector, benefits, and also about latest developments in the electric vehicle sector. So before we move on to Q&A, I would like to request the audience to take 30 seconds to answer poll. The purpose of the poll is to understand you a little better so that we can better curate the topics that we bring to you. You can also let us know in the chat box how you found out about Vishwa Talks. Is it through a friend, family, or even on social media? So, while you take the survey, I would like to express my gratitude to everybody who has joined us today. So, I extend my gratitude to our respected speaker, Mr. Madhav Reddy, for taking your time to grace the event, and to all the participants, and at last to the Vishwa team. Now, I would like to invite our founder, Ms. Srivani Mullapudi, to initiate the Q&A. Over to you, ma'am.
Namaste, Madhav Reddy garu. So it's good.
Namaste, madam.
It was very good hearing you out.
Thank you,
My
ma'am.
knowledge in this field is very limited. So I'm like listening to you very carefully.
Uh,
Uh,
thank you, ma'am. Thanks for your kind words.
um, One of the reasons Vishwa Talks has come out with the talks every Saturday is when we were young, we used to sit, my father used to call a lot of experts to home for dinner. And we used to sit late into the night and we would curiously and listen to the people who come. And here at Vishwa Talks, we have more than probably 80 to 100 people listening to you both on the Zoom and the YouTube very attentively. They want to hear
Thank
you, they want to know about the subject. Thank you so much for quenching this curiosity.
And thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, ma'am. It's really a privilege to be at Vishwa Talks, and I've heard a lot of good things about Vishwa, and would definitely, what do you say, going ahead, would love to stay in touch and contribute where I can, ma'am. Definitely.
So we'll move on to the question and answer section.
Sure, ma'am.
Um, has there been any study on the electricity consumption? Assuming, I mean, is there a target the government wants to move the ICE vehicles into electricity? Right now, what is the percentage? And from now, what is the target? And if they move to that target, is the country equipped to produce that kind of electricity? And if it is, what is the impact on the environment?
Understood, ma'am. I think that's a very valid question that has been pointed out. So yeah, one side we are saying that yeah, electric vehicle penetrations need to be increased. But yes, do we have the grid infrastructure already available to kind of support the electricity requirements for charging of these electric vehicles? So yes, so that is also something which the government is currently working upon parallelly. There are also quite a few companies or startups that are innovating, that are already there in this specific space, innovating in this specific space, basically understanding how this thing is being managed in the Western countries and kind of trying to replicate things over here. But yes, right now we are not ready to kind of the penetration levels that the government is envisioning. If we suddenly, for example, tomorrow have such kind of penetration levels, we are definitely not in a position to provide the relevant electricity for the vehicles to get charged. But that is something which is actually happening parallelly, and it's a very another important activity that needs to be in place for the penetration levels to increase. And in terms of the government projections, as per Niti Aayog, two electric two-wheelers are projected to reach almost close to 80% by 2030. Three-wheelers around 60%, and four-wheelers we have the passenger car segment close to 30% and 70% for the commercial segment. So these are the targets which the government has taken and working and is kind of working towards ensuring that this turns into a reality.
Lovely. That's amazing, especially if the commercial vehicles, if they're targeting like that.
Yes,
Uh,
ma'am.
so we can assume that the pollution levels will come down with the electric vehicle.
Exactly. True. 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 Very true, ma'am.
So which of the states in India, where are the manufacturing facilities right now for these EV vehicles in India? Which states are giving a lot of incentives or pushing these?
Yes, ma'am. So if we see, I mean, currently in terms of EV adoption, there are a lot of incentives. What do you say? Government support being provided. In Delhi, we can see a lot of adoption already being there because we see a lot of pollution out there in Delhi, which we used to hear in terms of the air quality index getting badly degraded, and also there are a lot of these things actually put in place where the government is also providing incentives for fleet operators to kind of utilize electric vehicles over there in Delhi. So Delhi is the I would say the place where the electric adoption is the highest. Apart from that, we have certain manufacturing hubs. One is Delhi NCR around there, and then we have in Maharashtra, and then we also have some in South India around Chennai. We also have in Hyderabad. If you look at even the Telangana government has come up with their own EV policy, and there are a lot of incentives that are also being provided in case someone is interested to set up manufacturing plants. There's quite a few things being provided by individual state government themselves.
Um, which companies, which of the companies are coming up with EV vehicles, Andy?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, like if we see right now, like if you look at the ICE vehicles, so already we know the standard brands like Hero, Honda, Bajaj, TVS. So these have been already been there in the market. So they are also coming up with new EV models. And on the other side, like I stated, since the EVs are not so much complex compared to ICE vehicles, there are also quite a few good players that are coming up with focus on the EV segment. Like we have in the two-wheeler space, we have players like Ather, Ola, and then we have a few other brands that have recently come up. Like we have Okinawa. There are quite a few brands. I mean, if I have to name, there are so many brands available because of the low entry to barriers. But these are some of the ones in the two-wheeler market, and in the three-wheeler market, we have Euler Motors, Mahindras, and all these things are all these traditional players are also bringing in EVs, which can replace their existing ICE vehicles. And Tata has done quite a bit on the four-wheeler side. We see the entire four-wheeler market being captured by Tata, and then we have some of the models available with Mahindra, and then we have with MG Motors, Hyundai. And on the buses, we have our own Hyderabad-based Electra, which is a electric bus manufacturer, and then we have Tata, who's having their own electric buses, Switch buses, which is a Ashok Leyland a subsidiary company, and then we have JBM buses. So there are quite a few brands that have actually come up and are doing a lot of innovation in this specific space.
Shmel, would you like to ask your question? Unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
You hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Shmel.
Okay. Thank you very much on very interesting presentation. I too very interested in the subject of electric vehicles and electric transportations. And I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
What according to you need to be a role of government and authorities of India in development electric vehicles in development infrastructures of electric vehicles.
Okay, like if I understood correctly, you want to understand what is the role of government in kind of, setting up or manufacturing and kind of promoting the CV adoption. Yeah.
E-
So,
Exactly, exactly.
yeah. May I know from where, which country you are, Shmil?
From Israel.
Sorry?
Israel, Israel.
Israel. Oh, okay, okay, okay. Nice, nice, nice to have you here today with us, Ashmil. So yeah, just to answer your question, basically, definitely, if you look at the Indian market, the government had a very important role to play. Like I already pointed out, there were certain FAME 2 subsidies that was provided by the government for all these manufacturers. For all the vehicles that are kind of rolling out of the production line, they gave certain portion of the overhead cost the government has actually borne for these vehicles, which actually helped in the initial setup of the manufacturing lines, rolling out of the vehicles into the market, and also customer started adopting these specific. So the initial traction was actually kind of provided because of the incentives, production linked incentives provided by the government for these manufacturers. They also provided certain incentives for setting up of charging infrastructure as well. So these were some of the key what do you say, initiatives taken by government, which fueled the initial growth that was required. And now we have the kind of a momentum already built. Now we have a lot of private players also coming in, setting up their things. Also established players also kind of getting into this specific space. Now it's a combined ecosystem which is actually driving the things. And also on the demand side, like I stated, to the end consumer, there were also certain benefits that were provided initially to promote adoption. That maybe, like for example, in our state Telangana, the initial 5 lakh electric two wheelers, they would get a registration fee waiver in case if they purchase an electric vehicle. So these are the kind of some state level government initiatives that were there, which actually helped in the initial adoption of the electric vehicles. So now even in the recent budget session, there was certain budget that was kept aside for the FAME 2 subsidy. However, the utilization is something which they are actually planning, so that the next level of adoption would happen. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Our next question is from Mr. Lalit Mohan Singh Negi. He says, is EV good for the Pahadi states? That is the northeastern, the where the hilly states.
Yes, I think very very valid question. Yeah, in terms of when we look at ICE vehicles and the electric vehicles, so ICE vehicles have been there from almost quite a few decades. I mean, if I have to say, almost 7 to 10 decades, we had these ICE vehicles which have developed over a period of time. And if you look at electric vehicles, if you see, hardly we are into this specific space, maybe 3 to 4 years down the line, and very few players were working beyond that specific timeline. So yeah, in terms of vehicle innovation, there is a lot that needs to be done. Yes, in hilly areas and where we need a lot of torque requirements for the vehicle to kind of carry a lot of loads, there are certain constraints on this space. But yeah, there are companies which are actually working on a day on basis as we speak to innovate in this specific space, so that all the use cases are addressed. And yes, these are kind of certain teething issues which any what do you say, new innovation would face when an adoption actually kickstarts in. Yes, there is a gap, but definitely, I mean, going ahead, these gaps would be fulfilled. That's what the
Must,
outlook looks like.
must be also very good for the environment,
True,
especially.
true, very true, very true, ma'am.
Okay. Next question is from Mudit Sharma ji. He says, um, what about the battery life? I heard it's nearly 5 years and the cost of replacement is very significant. Is that true?
Uh, yeah, hi Muditji. I think that's also another valid question that has been pointed out. pointed out. So ideally, what the current battery, whenever it is kind of utilized, right, there is a kind of degradation that happens in the electric cells as we keep charging and discharging. So there are also ways in which the electric the battery needs to be charged and discharged so that the life actually kind of get enhanced. There are a lot of things on that specific side as well. We are coming to specific to your question. The electric vehicle battery, normally the OEMs are actually giving, when they started, the warranty was for 3 years, and then they have extended for 5 years, and then now we see in four wheelers almost 8 years. So as the innovation is happening, even the, what do you say, the life of this battery is also kind of getting prolonged. But going ahead, we can see a significant improvement in the life of battery. Yes, I mean, if we have to replace the battery, like I stated, since it is almost 50% of the vehicle cost, so that will be a costly affair. If we are actually kind of out of the warranty period, then yes, that will have a deep pockets at this point in time. But going ahead, I think that is also an issue which will be taken care of.
Um, One question is, are sodium battery packs next in line?
Yes, like I touched upon, so there are quite a few alternate chemistries that are being kind of researched and looked upon. So if we see right now, we have the NMC, nickel, manganese, cobalt chemistry that is very prevalent. And apart from that, we have the LFP, lithium ferrophosphate. And then we have the sodium ion, which is also another big thing that's actually happening. But yeah, commercially, like I stated, we are at NMC and LFP, where we can see a lot of vehicles. On the sodium ion, there's also a lot of research that's actually happening, and I see some big companies also investing in this specific space. Going ahead, yes, that could be also another alternate chemistry that could kick in.
Is there are a lot of two-wheelers which is it very difficult to get financing for the two-wheelers?
Uh, that was the case definitely a couple of years back, if I have to say 1 to 2 years back. But right now, with a lot of stringent norms in place for even getting the vehicle out of the production line, so the quality of the vehicles have improved. So there's also a resale market that's actually kind of coming up. But yeah, nowadays, the financing market has actually improved, and definitely going ahead, it's going to improve a lot.
I'm Sheikh Ji had this question. Is it also difficult to get funding for four-wheelers?
No, like if you are looking to kind of purchase an electric four wheeler, we have the financing options, because normally two wheelers and three wheelers are where we see a lot of new companies that have come up, but four wheelers are traditionally being dominated by the existing players themselves. Like we have Maruti, Tata, Hector. So all these are pretty big brands, and then definitely banks would definitely kind of provide financing options for the vehicles that are coming out of these companies. So I don't think there would be an issue if someone is actually looking to purchase an electric four wheeler on a financing basis.
I'll quickly close the session talking about the upcoming talks, and then we will get back
Sure.
to the question and answer session.
Sure.
Thank you, everyone, for participating in Vishwa Talks. Please share it with your friends and family when you see an interesting talk coming up and you feel anybody is interested in it, because promoting Vishwa Talks on the social media hasn't been easy for us. And ensure, if any of you are interested, that you are subscribing, because without subscribing, we will be unable to send you any notifications of the upcoming talks. Our up next talk is on the significance of Mahashivratri. Uh, Day by day, what we are noticing is that the younger generation is losing the identity of where they come from, who they are, and their roots. So we wanted to give a little bit of let the people know what is the significance of Mahashivratri, since we are having Shivratri coming soon. Shrikant Sharmagaru, Samskruta Acharyalu from the Kanchikamakoti Peetam, Palmur Shaka, is having this talk on March 2nd, 2024, 11 a.m. It will be a talk in Telugu. There will be subtitles to it. There is another talk coming on the impact of music on brain development by Sita Anand Vaidyam, March 16th, 2024, 11 a.m. She's from the Ananda Foundation. With this, I will close the Vishwa Talks um, and thank everybody in the Vishwa Talks team. Thanks, Madhav Reddy Garu. It was fantastic. We will continue, and thanks to each of the participants who have participated. For those of you who would like to continue with the Q&A session, please stay on. We'll continue. So next question is from Ritesh and Gore. Is government subsidy available for charging stations?
Yes, I mean, in FAME 2, I believe there was a certain portion that was even allocated for setting up of electric charging stations where there are kind of certain overhead costs and also in terms of electricity cost reduction. So these things are actually being provided by the government. Yeah, they were there.
Is the battery disposal an hazardous to the environment?
Yeah, I think that's another good point touched upon. So if you see the lithium-ion battery, almost 90 to 95% of the battery is totally recyclable. So since the penetration levels are pretty low right now, so we don't see a much of a recycling market kind of evolving. So as the market matures, we will have a lot of vehicles that will come to their end of life. So that's when we see this recycling would happen. But yeah, in terms of the specific question that you pointed out, 90 to 95% of the battery pack, the components that go into a battery pack are recyclable.
This question is from Narendra Nath Talukdar. Don't you think ICE, BV, BEV, HEV, CNG, LNG will coexist as per the requirement, economy, or convenience?
Definitely. At the end of the day, like I stated, to the end consumer, it's all about affordability and the kind of, what do you say, experience which he's actually getting. So all these are alternate, what do you say, ways of kind of commute. A lot of research is happening in all these spaces. But yeah, like I stated, commercially, EVs are little ahead. Going ahead, yeah, in future we could see all these things coexisting as well.
There's a question. Is it viable to set up EV charging stations?
Yes, that's a good question. I briefly touched upon. So it was a kind of a chicken and egg problem that actually happened, wherein like if someone sets up a electric charging point, so typically he has to have that inflow of vehicles from which he or she can kind of generate revenue to kind of take care of the initial investment he has done. So that is the reason even government has actually kind of provided few. Incentives or what do you say, this benefits for setting up this specific charging point. So at this point in time, yes, because the penetration levels are low, so there are in terms of viability, yes, it is a challenge at this point in time, but as the volumes increases, as the penetration level increases, this is going to be a very lucrative market going ahead.
This is a question from Gautam Lahiri. Chinese companies are doing very well in terms of manufacturing long range batteries. How can Indian companies adopt the same technology? This will really help in the TCO of an EV.
Uh, that's very true, I would say, in a sense. Yes, Chinese vehicles are actually designed and developed for working under specific conditions because Chinese market and Indian markets, the road conditions all actually kind of vary. So yeah, if we can, I believe that's what the model in which we are also looking at, where lot of emphasis was given on production. Product manufacturing of these vehicles. But yeah, the only what do you say, the challenge that comes in is we need to develop vehicles suited for Indian conditions. So that's what actually kind of uh, differed in the earlier 2 3 years scenario, where a lot of people imported these Chinese models and tried to kind of fit in the Indian ecosystem, which didn't work out that much. So right now, Indian companies are stepping up, putting a lot of emphasis on the R&D, developing electric vehicles, sourcing almost 100% from India. We are dependent on the cells, but yeah, developing the vehicles for suited for Indian conditions. So that's what the current market is looking at.
What does the Indian entrepreneur need to be given by the uh, government to ensure that the ecosystem for these electrical vehicles is robust and we Indians stay ahead of the curve in the global market?
Understood. I mean, in terms of support from government, definitely one thing which I already pointed out is the production-linked incentives. But yeah, there are also there are also other ways in which the government can actually support. In faster adoption of these EVs, is that for all the government departments, wherever there is a need of fleet, so all this can be kind of transferred kind of transition to electric vehicles, because in terms of environment, that's going to be quite a bit environment friendly, and it also at the same time will help these emerging businesses or the people who are manufacturing the vehicles, so that they already have a demand in place which they can cater to. And once people see a lot of adoption happening, it's just what do you say, one following the other, so that could actually come in. So one, in terms of benefits or incentives, these things which the government can provide, and also providing access to business opportunity by replacing the existing ICE vehicles by electric vehicles.
So there are rules by the government that ICE vehicles should be converted to electrical vehicles in certain places, or are they interest incentives being given by the banks, or are local governments giving land for manufacturing facilities, or are the incentives being given for charging facilities? What kind of a policy does the government have? What is Niti Ayog talking about all this?
Yes, I mean, definitely in terms of the central government, it actually has its own set of policies. But if we look at the specific things that are currently pointed out, these are very much what do you say, relevant to the state government. So if we see in terms of Delhi, yeah, like there are certain mandates that have actually come in, that in case if the vehicle is used for a B2B after certain period of time, it should be purely electric vehicle, or this much percent of your fleet should be electric vehicles. So these are some of the mandates which the state government has actually brought in. And also in terms of the land support, the infrastructure support, every state government has their own individual EV policy. Like we in Telangana also have our own EV policy, where in case if someone is interested to set up a manufacturing plant, there are well written guidelines and rules that, yeah, I mean, this is what would be provided in terms of land, in terms of other kind of support, electricity, tax benefits. So it's all already well written and documented, and yeah, it's available there at this point in time.
Um, in terms of career, what are the educational institutions or the courses that are supporting EV manufacturing?
So I think, yeah, that's another important area, because lastly, when I stated a collaboration is actually needed across different stakeholders. So educational institutions also play a very important role over here, because a lot of research and development actually happens in these educational institutions across the country, like be it IITs, NITs, or the different educational institutions across the country. So there needs to be a synergy that needs to be created between companies and startups, established governments, educational institutions, so that the innovation reaches where it is supposed to be. So yeah, I mean, in terms of educational institutions, there are quite a few, I would say, institutions where at least they are introducing EVs as one of the topics for the, students to go through. And there are certain institutes where there is an entire subject or a diploma course being created for EV enthusiasts. Helping them in understanding the entire dynamics of the vehicle, the different components, the connectivity of the vehicle. Yes, there is a lot happening on that space as well. Yeah.
Is it difficult to get a production manager in Bangalore, or is it difficult to get people working in these facilities right now in India?
Yes, I mean, manpower was one challenge earlier, but yeah, going ahead, as we see the market maturing, like even in the educational institutions also kind of promoting courses relevant to EVs, connected technologies. So this was an issue earlier, but yeah, it's something that's going to take care going ahead. But yeah, certain roles, if I would have to say, they can kind of overlap between the ICE vehicle production line and the EV production line, where we already have enough talent available. Only on certain aspects of the EV, where technicalities related to EVs are involved, that is where we have a dearth in the manpower availability. But yeah, it's the gap is actually kind of getting bridged.
A question from Krishna Tubal. We're going very far. We're taking on fast charging, but due to this, there's a lot of battery degradation and also energy density decreases. So ultimately, the life cycle reduces of the battery. So why are we pushing in for fast charging?
So yeah, I mean, like one of the key difference between an ICE and an electric vehicle is that so whenever our fuel tank gets empty, we just go to a petrol bunk and then instantaneously the petrol gets filled, and there's no much hassle over there. However, if you look at an electric vehicle, so typically with the kind of I mean the technology at which we are in, it typically takes some time, 1 hours to 2 hours for the entire vehicle to get for entire battery to get charged to almost 80%, 80 to 90%. There are technologies that are actually coming in where they are trying to reduce this time for maybe less than 50. There are even certain cases where it has already been reduced, but it should be adopted in a large scale. So the main thing is that this actually impacts the EV adoption. So if someone is in a hurry, and if he has to wait and then he has to charge for 2 hours for the battery to get charged, then that would definitely hinder him from actually purchasing an EV. And yes, like you rightly stated, with fast charging, the battery degradation would happen fast and would impact the overall vehicle battery health going ahead. But yeah, it's a challenge which we need to address as we go ahead.
This is by Vishal Bagul. Is there any effort being put by the government or private sector on establishing battery swapping system in the country so as to have instant solution for these?
Yes, I think for the problem that I have stated in the last question, to answer the last question, where someone has to actually wait for the vehicle to actually get charged. So now we also have the swapping system that's actually coming in. There are quite a few pretty good players. I mean, big players who are heavily invested into this specific space, and are also having certain tested and proven use cases across some geographies as well, where this swapping instantaneously, the battery swapping can actually happen. And also there is a big collaboration that happened with Hero, with the Taiwan company, if I'm not wrong. So I mean, there's a lot of work also happening on that specific space. But yeah, there are these are two different schools of thought. Some would say fast charging would solve the problem of I mean, there wouldn't be any need of battery swapping if we have fast charging, but then this will have its own cons of battery degradation. But then if we have battery swapping, then there is a lot of infrastructure that need to be put in place in terms of batteries and all these battery swapping stations across the city. So yeah, I mean, as the market matures, I think the best solution that we have, the market would get diverted to that specific scenario.
This is from Shubho Dasgupta. What is the future of companies who are selling EV in Indian market by importing from China?
I think, like I stated, one is the vehicle needs to be developed according to the Indian conditions. So that is one thing. And the second thing is all the government incentives or promotion is being provided or supported to the companies which are kind of 100% make in India. So one thing why people would actually import from China is for the cost implications. Basically, the cost would be low rather than actually producing it over here. But yeah, with these things in place, definitely the cost of actually importing and the cost of actually production would cost of actually production would actually go down with the government support over here. And also the vehicle needs to be aligned with the Indian market conditions. The companies which invest a lot of money into R&D are the only ones which gonna survive, because this is a space which is evolving on a day-to-day basis. There's a lot of things happening on a everyday basis.
This question is from Sri Hari. Nowadays, OEMs are moving towards cell to chassis from cell to pack. Is it a planned obsolescence? Once a single module is faulty, will OEMs ask us to change the entire pack or underbody? Your thoughts, please.
So basically, at this point in time, I mean, like, yeah, the level of technology at which we are in right now, the entire battery pack, because be it a two-wheeler or four-wheeler, I mean, normally the entire battery pack needs to be kind of replaced in case if there is any kind of issue in the battery. Because kind of dismantling the battery, looking at individuals, so that at that level of microscopic, what do you say, tech, we haven't achieved that kind of perfection yet. But yeah, going ahead, there could be this specific thing where the individual modules which are actually impacted could be replaced, so that would actually reduce a lot of stress on the maintenance side of the things whenever vehicles face such kind of an issues. Yes, this is something that going ahead will be taken care of.
Shubhodas Gupta, what is the future of a company who are seeing EV by importing from China?
I think I just answered the question, but yeah, the companies which are purely reliant on China, if they aren't innovating, I mean, definitely the future would look bleak, because there are already a lot of vehicles that are being developed in India specific to Indian conditions, with much more product quality as well as improved user experience than what we earlier got from China. So unless and until a company doesn't invest in R&D, it's going to be very difficult to survive in this dynamically changing market.
There's a question by Vishal Bagul. Is there any instant solution to avail fully charged battery bank on the go, like it is like in conventional refueling? I think you've also answered this, but
Yes, yes. We have the swapping thing that's actually coming up, where the battery can be replaced by another full battery. But yeah, I mean, or the other option is that the fast charging option. Basically, these two are the solutions available right now. But yeah, but both these are different school of thoughts, and then we'll have to see where the market would actually kind of head to in the future.
there's a question from Loganathan Munuswamy. How much does it cost to set up a charging station? What kind of financial support the government provides? What's the business opportunities on charging stations?
Yeah, I mean, if I have to just kind of give a ballpark figure, I mean, one, if you're looking at slow chargings, I mean, the typical normal charges which takes 2 to 3 hours, I wouldn't think that would actually cost much. But if we are looking at kind of a fast charging station, so typically that would come around, I would close to say 6 to 10 lakhs is what I would. I mean, if I can recollect correctly, that could be the initial investment setup cost and all. But yeah, to kind of recollect that kind of investment that has been done through, it would take some good amount of time. But there are companies right now, not only government but companies themselves are also kind of coming in front, where we just need to kind of provide land. They will put the initial investment cost, and they will deploy the entire charging station. And once the business kicks in, they'll just take a cut in the revenue. So there are quite a few business models already in place and players available out there. I think if you can reach out to them, you'll get a much more detailed detailed things on how this thing actually works.
Question from Bharat. I'm interested in starting a manufacturing EV at Bangalore. Can I get technical support?
Okay. So maybe I mean, we actually work on like one specific area of the entire ecosystem. So maybe we could help you on that specific aspect. With the connectivity of the vehicles is what we actually work upon. So that would be the we can provide our services. And definitely, because we work closely with quite a few battery manufacturers they're out there in the market, we can also help you connect with them. But yeah, in terms of the overall expertise, we would need to bring in a lot of partners together who are expertise in their individual fields to take it forward. Yeah.
The last question is from Gautam Lahiri. Will hydrogen car and an EV have different TCO? How safe will a hydrogen car be given the combustible nature of the hydrogen?
Yeah, I think yeah, that's where the challenge of hydrogen currently is, where in terms of storage and also in terms of the safety aspects. If we look at, there is a lot of research that's happening in this specific space, and there are successful prototypes that have been developed by big companies such as Toyota on the hydrogen side of the things. But yeah, commercially it is yet to be kind of tested and proven. And EVs, yes, we are already there. I mean, things are being adopted, so EVs are a little bit ahead of the hydrogen market, if I would have to say. But yeah, I mean, nevertheless, a lot of investment is going into this specific site. Going ahead, both can coexist in future. That is definitely could be a reality.
With this, I close the session. Thank you to all the participants who made this a very engaging session. Thank you to the speaker who patiently answered every single question, and thank you to the Vishwa team for a wonderful, well organized talk.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me here. Thank you, everyone.